Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Silo episodes 2 and 3, which are called Houlston's Pick and Machines, respectively. So, aha! You didn't think I'd be back to talk about this one, probably, but I'm here. I wanted to catch up a little bit. Obviously, I know I'm not completely caught up. Episode 4's already out, but I didn't want to do too many in one batch. So I watched episodes 2 and 3. And because I enjoyed episode 1. It wasn't like it didn't blow me away, but it set up an interesting world, and I think these 2 episodes do flesh it out a little bit more, and I'm a bit more intrigued with some of the characters, not necessarily all of the characters. There's definitely elements of the show that I think are more interesting than others. The stuff that I'm maybe not quite sold on yet is the actual, like, the hierarchy and the power struggle inside the silo, specifically kind of the shady, was it the judiciary, I think they called them? But it's like, there's people walking around in black clothes who are working for the sort of more strict people in charge that may or may not be offing people who are doing things they don't want them to. People try to influence the mayor's decision about who the new sheriff is. Like, that stuff I'm not super sold on yet. Obviously, spoilers for episodes 2 and 3, because I'm going to be talking about them. Episode 3, of course, ends with what seems to be the mayor's death, or attempted death, perhaps, if it is. I'm assuming it's foul play, is what I'm saying. So I'm not so sure I'm super sold on that side of things. But what I am sold on, and this is good given that she seems to be the main character, is Rebecca Ferguson's character of Juliet, who was only just briefly introduced at the end of episode 1. And I will say, I actually really enjoyed how episode 2 also played with the structure a little bit. And it started with the sheriff, Houlston, going outside, and then we got some of her reaction to that, and then it went back and kind of like, to her story, and then that kind of overlapped with where he met her in episode 1. I thought that was a nice little meet up of the different things. If anything, I thought episode 3 was maybe I was missing playing with the structure a little, because episodes 1 and 2 both had a lot of that. They both had a lot of like people going back and telling stories of the past, and I'm hoping there'll be a bit more of that as we go on. But I think she is quite good, and it's interesting that she's the biggest face on the poster, so it's not a surprise she's the lead character, but it's very interesting that she's barely in episode 1. She's like a glimpse of her at the end of the episode pretty much, and then that is it. And then episodes 2 and 3, it's all about her. It's all about setting up who she is, what her motivations are. It turns out she was in a relationship with the computer guy, George, so his death means something to her, and that's why she cares about proving that it was a murder. But she has this extra motivation to sort of like take on his goal, because he was obsessed with the life before, with the people before the rebellion, before the silo, all that stuff. And there's a lot of world building specifically in episode 2 that I enjoyed. I mean, episode 2 is probably my favorite of the 3 episodes so far. I think 3 has some moments I like. I think the stuff that I like in 3, I do, as much as I'm not sold yet on loving the hierarchy of the silo, I do appreciate the mayor sort of doing this journey from the top to the bottom to go meet Juliet. I think her like going past a few areas did feel like it was fleshing out the world a little bit, even if I'm not necessarily sold in every single part of that world quite yet in terms of my interest. But I thought that did a lot for her character. In episode 1, I was thinking she was in on the conspiracy. If they are choosing to kill people who are going outside, I was thinking she was in on it, and I don't think that anymore after these 2 episodes. It feels like she's a relatively sympathetic character who just believes in what this world is and what the rules of the world are. It's funny actually. Will Patton, who plays the deputy who's with her here, and they have this kind of romance that reveals itself, shall we say, in episode 3, is that he was the love interest for Jamie Lee Curtis in the newer Halloween movies, and he was also like the sheriff or a deputy or something like that. So it's kind of funny that he's kind of, I feel like he's almost been typecast as the nicer older man who can be a love interest to an older woman character, which is very unique because you'll often hear actors and stuff talk about how there's not as many roles for older women, and I think it's interesting that he's found himself in at least two different things now that I've noticed, where he is the love interest character for the more prominent female character of a similar age, and I just think that's actually quite funny and unique. So that stuff was fine. But the big, I mean, what do I want to talk about? I'll go back and talk about the walking outside in a bit. I think we'll talk about Juliet. I do like the odd choice for Houlston to pick her as the new sheriff. And I think the most exciting thing about episode 3 was the idea that the mayor was going down to meet her, and that very, very quickly it was clear that she's like, you know what, I'm on board with this. I don't know why he picked her, but she sees her in action. She sees that she cares about the machines and the generator, and that she's quick on her feet and thinks and gets people through things, and actually takes her seriously when she's like, we have to turn that down or turn it off and go in the backup for a number of hours so we can fix, because something's not right. She can hear something in the generator that's not quite working properly, and it's like on a collision. And this is so realistic to me. Not the science of the generator. I don't know if any of that is nonsense or what. I don't know. I'm not an engineer or a scientist. But what is realistic to me about all this is the idea that everyone, when she says we have to turn it off, is disgusted with that suggestion. Even though turning it off so they can fix it so it won't break forever is obviously the right thing to do, but no one wants the inconvenience of it actually being off, and everyone, even the characters who we're supposed to like, don't like this suggestion one bit. But I think that to me, that is the best part of episode 3, is the choice to go down and meet her, their interaction, and then Juliet's choice to take the job when there's the scratching of the word truth in the back of the badge. I think those are the best parts of episode 3, and the parts that I was more invested in. The actual story of episode 3, which was once we get to the point where they've met and she agrees to take the job, but only if she can fix the generator properly. The back half of the episode is mostly just like a, would you call it an action plot? I guess you kind of would. It's like a tense action plot of like fixing the generator. And just them carrying out this plan and the thrills that go along with that, and that's perfectly fine. Like, it's entertaining enough, but it's not, it's not really serving all that much, as a whole, as opposed, although, because we already see that she's capable, we already see that she's fixed things and that she's smart and that she takes command and stuff, and hell, even the other characters have already seen her do that, so I don't know if it serves that much to me right now. Like maybe in hindsight, when we get more episodes and I see more of where our story's going, I might look back at this kind of set piece of them like doing this. They're against the clock and they're having to cool down the hatch that's underneath because it's overheating with all the steam, and the more rookie guys try to like fix the blade and put it in, and like it's all tense stuff. But it never really felt like it was anything other than just the tense sequence of the episode, and once it's all dealt with, it's done. If anything, the more interesting thing about it is that just seeing a glimpse of what this entire civilization is like when this reminds them like how perilous their life is and how perilous this place is, that they're concerned it'll never come back on, and that there may be anarchy in I'm going to say the streets, but the staircase, if it doesn't come back on in a fashionable time, but so those little hints, and even Tim Robbins coming out and like Tim Robbins is clearly in support of the bad guys, or is maybe even secretly high up in the bad guys, or whatever. He seems very anti-mayor here, but yeah, there is an interesting thing to. Obviously, like we get the stuff in episode 2 where Juliet takes Houlston down to what seems to be the giant digger that dug the site for this silo, and it was left down here, and it's kind of this relic of the times before. and introduces a lot of mysteries. Houlston gets his hand on the hard drive. He said he's going to look into it. Obviously, we don't see if he does see anything on it. We would presume that he maybe does by the time he made his choice to go outside, but we'll see that in the future. But this idea of Juliet. I thought one of the best visuals of the episodes was this sort of like blackness of the water that's underneath this digger that she tries to go in and chickens out, and that she feels bad about that because she couldn't finish. There's an implication that it's somewhere under that water there's a secret door that George found, and she's sad that she's not been able to do that. And part of the reason why she's taken this job, arguably the only reason to be sheriff, is because she thinks it's going to lead to answers. That Houlston sent her this sign that he found something that she will want to see. And I think that's fascinating. I think her motivations and her determination to see what's going on is probably the heart of the show after these episodes, because she's a likable character, she's a capable character who's smart, she has her own fears. I think her being scared of that sort of pit of water set up nicely, that when she's cooling down the hatch with the fire hose, that she's starting to like nearly, she's in danger of drowning, and the idea that she's scared of water. And it kind of makes sense that maybe no one in the silo maybe knows how to swim. I mean, maybe there's a swimming pool on one of the levels, but there's a good chance there isn't. And if there isn't, then why would anyone in this building have ever learned to swim? Maybe they just see it as like certain death. I don't know. Maybe that's something they'll expand upon as we see more. So but no, all of this, like the artifact stuff and going down there, I thought the underground drill, this giant drill device, that was the sort of stuff that was sort of tantalizing my brain a little bit more, as far as because now it's getting into the logistics of who built this place, which makes me more interested than I was before, just because I compared it to a little bit to Snowpiercer in the first episode, and I think that comparison was not something that I liked making, because I don't actually like Snowpiercer that much. A lot of people do like it. People dig that movie, and I think the director is very good, has made other good movies. But something about the premise of Snowpiercer is always like it's always capped at a B movie tier for me, because there's just something about the world and like the logic of that movie that just doesn't feel like it's thought out enough and makes enough sense to me that this could function, and that they would get to this point where they'd be surviving on a train. It just doesn't work for me. And I think the idea of like, okay, no, episode 2, we're already talking about like, this is the giant drill that whoever built this place built it. Whether this is the post-apocalypse or it is in the far future, or maybe it's present day and this was something that was built a long time ago and it's an experiment or whatever it may be. Who knows? I mean, if you've read the book, you probably know, but it's from a TV audience perspective. Like, all these things feel like possibilities right now. Maybe we're on an alien spaceship. I really, it's hard to say. But what to sort of like dovetail this into the going outside, which it's so funny to me that the first episode was all entirely pretty much about going outside. I mean, it was the thing that I remembered the most about that episode, was that so much of it was about the wife going outside, the build up to what you see when you go outside. Are you going to clean the lens? Are you not going to clean the lens? Yada yada yada. It's interesting to me that we get a big bit of that at the start of episode 2, but then it just kind of like, that mystery, we'll come back to that later. We'll come back and talk about that later. There is a great little moment though in episode 3 for it, which is when they turn off the generator and it flicks to the like the filter that's making it look like the wasteland like turns off for a second first, and you can see all the greenery, and then that turns off. That said though, I'm so skeptical of anything they're presenting to me with this going outside, because we follow the sheriff outside, but there's a couple of key choices in how they filmed this that really stuck out to me about keeping the possibilities open for more swerves, for more mystery. Basically, he sees the lush green, full of life world, right? He sees the green in the trees, the grass, all that stuff. But I noticed that we never get a wide shot of that. We never get a third-person shot of just him in the environment looking like that. Nor did we get a wide shot of him in the environment with it looking like a wasteland. We only ever saw him standing in the wasteland from the perspective of the camera, from the perspective of everyone else watching, including Juliet, watching the screen. We never saw that when he was outside. But we also only ever saw the lush greenery when we were seeing his perspective looking through his helmet. And it is quite exciting when he takes off his helmet. And I was thinking this before a character even said it, have they ever seen anyone take their helmet off? And I was thinking, I was even theorizing last episode that maybe something in the suits that they're pumping in is actively killing them rather than the environment. But he takes off his helmet, and notably, once he does take off his helmet, you never see the POV shot again of the lush world. All you see is almost like a blinding light around him, as if like it's so bright and he can't handle it, which made me question what is he seeing now at this point. And I wasn't like convinced, and that was the other thing. When it was all green and you see his POV shot, it didn't look like his wife's body was there. It was still there to everyone else who was seeing the Wasteland version, but it wasn't there on the green version. And all of this was making me think that even the green version isn't real, that both of them are fake, and that there's whatever else is actually out there. Like, if anything, it just further sent me down the path that this is just like an augmented reality kind of, or a holodeck style thing where they go out and it's just like a big white room and there's nothing really there, and the helmet simulates one thing, or it sees through the first filter but doesn't see through everything, which maybe sets up like, okay, why the idea that there's these multiple settings for what they might be seeing, and it's just been maybe stuck on the shitty one forever. Maybe that was the intention. Maybe it was switched to that during the rebellion they all talk about from however many years ago. I mean, I don't know, but I got to the point in this scene where I didn't even trust the green version either. Both of them feel suspect to me now. There's a lot of sus going on with how they presented this. And part of me thinks that, maybe no one who leaves actually dies. Maybe, it looks like that to everyone inside because they're on the camera, but she wasn't there when he was out there from the other viewpoint, which then begs the question, like, what are we seeing? Or, is there someone coming in and taking them away? Is this something that was set up and now it's been abandoned and no one's out there to, like, sort of, like, let's say this was some sort of experiment to build this thing. And people were supposed to come and either let them out or get updates or something, but if something happened in the world then, maybe it is still the future and something bad happened, but that wasn't the purpose of this place in the first place. Because the most obvious thing, the first thing you think of is that the world is going to shit either because of climate change or because of some big nuclear war or whatever it is, so a society builds this place to escape from all of it and be safe. That is the most obvious explanation that you think of first. But there's all these other things that sort of suggest maybe not. And okay, if not, then why? And I think the other thing that's clear to me, perhaps, is that whatever the original reason was is not necessarily still in play. Like, so let's say this place was built because it was to escape something. The actual thing it was built to escape might be long over. Or maybe it was built when it wasn't bad outside, but now it is bad outside because they've been down here for so long and the rest of the world's went to shit. Like, I feel like whatever the original purpose was, this society that's now completely self-contained and has no idea what their history is, beyond a certain date, they just don't know the function of this place and why they're here. It's just a civilization that's completely bottled off now, and a lot of them are too scared to ask questions. They have laws about asking questions and going into it. But obviously some are curious, and the story of the show largely is that some of these characters are going to go looking for answers and want to find answers. And that is quite interesting, by and large. I think the fact that this place exists, from an episode 1 point of view, wasn't that exciting to me. What's more exciting to me is this idea now that, why does it exist and in what ways is it changed? It starts to feel more real when it's like, it's not just it was built for one purpose and it's still serving that exact purpose. The idea that it's been misunderstood, or someone, during this rebellion when the history was erased, right? probably by the side that won, even though they claim it wasn't. When the history was erased, did that, like, confuse and intentionally mislead as to what this place was, because they didn't want everyone to know what the original purpose was. They wanted people, is this just a method of controlling people to flourish in here because they don't want people leaving, because they realize that if everyone thinks they can just go and everything's fine outside, then, whatever. Or they're all in an alien spaceship. It's always a possibility. It's always a possibility. It could be that. But I really enjoyed the scenes of Juliet with Houlston in the second episode. I enjoyed her sort of old friend who's like the tinkerer, the one who fixes stuff. She had a nice personality, and kind of just like seeing these old relics, like the old Pez dispenser, the shuttlecock, and obviously the hard drive. I suppose the biggest plot point is that they find an old camera. They don't know it's a camera though. They don't know what it is, and that's obviously something that's going to come up. Is like maybe if they get footage off this, and the question is this footage from inside the silo from before the rebellion, or is this footage from the outside world that shows something interesting to them, something new, something revealing? Probably, because otherwise it wouldn't be a plot point, or something else. There's a lot of possibilities there as far as that part of it goes, but yeah, I like, for the most part, yeah, I'm more on board than I was after episode 1. There's a lot of things that I like more. There's some stuff, like I say, the shady group that might be running things and like killing people. I'm less into that right now. It might grow on me. It might become better as things go. But this, seemingly attempted murder, if not a successful murder, of the mayor at the end of episode 3. Like, I sort of sensed something bad was coming because they were too happy. It was just TV writing 101. The moment's handled well enough on its own, and there's enough shady moments before that. I mean, we haven't even talked about Common's character, who appears at first in episode 2. Briefly, we see him in episode 3 on behalf of the sort of the villainous group, but and I say villainous just because that's how they feel from our perspective right now. But he seems to try to be nice to the mayor, and she kind of calls him out on this being more of a facade. This she kind of like accuses him of trying to like give her a heart attack by giving her a sugary treat, effectively. But the fact that she then ends up seemingly dying from something at the end of the episode that looks like it could be poison, like, it doesn't look, without someone telling me otherwise, it looks very much like she could have been poisoned by something. It does sort of like paint a picture, but it does also make a point of showing you him with his daughter during all the stuff with the lights going off. Like, yeah, like, I think the conspiracy who are the bad people plot feels a lot more generic to me, but the stuff that I'm a bit more into is just the everyday today operations, like seeing like the long-haired cop like just patrol the hallways and like help an old man back when the lights were off, like, seemed more interesting to me. It was like, oh, how does this place just function as normal? Or even Will Patton's character, Deputy Marnes, like him just talking about the first arrest he ever made, and how it was over there, and just this idea that there's about 140 floors or so that they don't have elevators for, so they're having to go up and down. So when the mayor and him are going all the way down to the bottom, it is this long trek. It is this, like, I'm sweating just thinking about all those stairs. Admittedly, not really in the way down. The way down is not a big deal. The way back up, though, jeez. You think their number one priority would be to like develop some sort of like, even if it's not like a powered thing, like some sort of rudimentary like pulley system, just to, just so you could go into a little box and just like pull the rope and go up the stairs that way. Then again, I suppose your arms would just get really tired doing that as well. But that said, though, not many places to get a lot of exercise in here, I would imagine. So maybe going up and down the stairs a lot is the way to go. One thing that I mentioned in the first episode that they didn't really get into, but they do a bit more in these 2 episodes, is the social class system and the hierarchy of the And it's not surprising what it is they talk about the uppers, the mids, and the bottom. So the bottom is the maintenance, and it's an interesting thing for Juliet's character that she was the daughter of a doctor from the middle of the silo who like helps deliver babies, which in here seems to be a big deal. Like that makes him very important. Um, so it's interesting that she made the choice at 13 to go. She does mention to Houlston that she saw both her sibling and her mother die at a young age, and I think it was 13 for the second one. I think the mother was 13. That seems to be when she left. So clearly there's some backstory there in this fractured relationship with her father, who's not seen her in a long time. Like, there's obviously stuff to dig into there that I'm sure they're going to go into at some point. So yeah, that's all fine. But you know, they set up this thing that, you know, you're going to let someone from the bottom like be sheriff and like run the place. People need this sense of security, and you're going to pick someone like this because the judges or whoever they are, they've got a candidate, they've got some Paul douchebag that they want to be sheriff, and the mayor. Honestly, it felt like the mayor, like, obviously when she sees Juliet, she sees how capable she is, and she sees a spark in her that makes her go, you know what, I'm going to trust Holston's dying wish, I'm going to pick her. And it's a good moment when she says that. But I also like even before that point, she's determined to go and meet her and actually consider it, because the idea that the other group are just going to get what they want scares her so much that she has to go and like look for the alternative. Like, it's that sort of thing where you don't necessarily know if option A is good, but if you know option B is definitely bad, then you still pick option A. The unknown is better than the definitely bad. And it felt like she was operating with that kind of logic to a point. Like, it was unnerving her that this group were going to have even more power, and that was probably a bad idea. So yeah, I'm digging all that stuff. I'm not digging all that stuff. I'm not necessarily digging the other group, but I'm digging the seeds of like what this place is, when it was built, why it was built, and Juliet more importantly than anything else. Juliet as a character and her kind of drive to find out stuff, and it's obviously introduced a bunch of other characters down at the bottom of the silo that we can come back to. Her friend down there, who I didn't catch her name. But she had kind of the hair sort of like tied up and tied back. Like, you know, so you know, I'll remember her face. I'll remember what she was like. I'll remember the rookie kid that was helping her. Her boss down there that was sort of barking the orders, and then of course the cop down there with the long hair we've already met before. So there's like a little group of characters down there that, you know, we'll remember, so that, you know, when there's stuff popping off all over the station and we cut down there, we'll recognize people, we'll understand them, we'll care if something bad happens down there now to an extent. And they're all relatively innocent and likable characters, at least at a glance. You know, like, obviously that could change in time, but it feels like they're all the innocent ones worth saving, as opposed to maybe, you know, Tim Robbins, who's like skeevy and seems to be up to stuff and is trying to manipulate the mayor at points and stuff like that. So, but no, Sally episodes 2 and 3, pretty good. I think 2 is probably the best of the 3. I think 3, I missed the more interesting structure, and I thought it was also kind of odd how it was very much like, it was the longest episode of the 3, and it did kind of feel like half of one thing, and then the back half was the fixing the generator, and it's all just that, right? It did feel like there was a shift halfway through the episode where now it's all about that. And that felt maybe a little strange, because coming out of episode 2, it didn't feel like that's what we were focusing on. It felt like we were focusing on her motivations and her fear and her attempt to go down into that water and all that stuff. So it felt like we did kind of shift gears at one point, no pun intended. But yeah, but it didn't make for a bad episode though. I was still into a lot of what it was doing, but it definitely felt the least tight of the episodes because of that, I think. Episode 2, I thought had an interesting structure. I think it introduced us to our seemingly actual main character and gave us a compelling enough story with her to actually want to see her journey through. So, yeah. So that is my thoughts. No doubt I've not spoke about everything, and that's okay. But obviously anything else that comes up in the future, we'll talk about it. But yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing next in terms of. Am I just going to try and squeeze in episode 4? What will probably happen is that I'll do 4 and 5 together after 5's out. I think that's probably the way I'll go. And then from there, if I'm caught up, maybe I'll do the individual episodes, week to week as they're coming out. I'll see how I feel. I find it's best to be a little loose with this and do what feels right. Having to hit like specific days can almost make watching a TV show feel a bit more like a chore, and I don't want it to feel like a chore. I want to be excited and look forward to it, and feel enthusiastic about talking through it. So I'll do what feels right, but I am going to cover the rest of the season if that wasn't obvious from talking about these two. So I mean, unless it drastically tanks in the next couple of episodes, but I think that's the general plan. So let me know what you thought of episodes 2 and 3 of Silo in the comments. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. That helps out a lot, as it does, of course, going to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and supporting us over there for as little as $3 per month to get some bonus content for a lot of the movie podcasts and stuff that are over on Mailfuzz Movies. But generally speaking, it just helps to keep all the content coming. So thank you very much. I will see you guys soon. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?